Top 5 fans? So, in the post-fight press conference with UFC 285, Dana White came out. They asked the question regarding Francis Ngannou, and he pretty much flat out said that he does not believe that fight's going to happen because he does not believe that Francis Ngannou either one does not want to fight, and two doesn't come back because there's no deal to be made. That pretty much Dana White had multiple times. He pretty much said in the interview that he had multiple times tried to make that fight happen for the past 3 years. I follow the sport to a T. I follow the sport multiple times. I look at the different news outlets. I listen to different media. I listen to different podcasts. I pretty much go up and down and look for information regardless, and look at everything up. Look for the details, I should say. I remember this being negotiated and being talked about in the earlier days when Jon Jones first left. First, I remember Jon Jones talking about how he wants to make that Deontay Wilder money. You guys remember that? Anyone remember that? I remember that. So let's not pretend, Dana White, let's not pretend that all this time Jon Jones was the one not holding it up. Jon Jones at times was also part in holding this fight up because he wanted that big time money. He wanted that Deontay Wilder money, if you guys remember that. He definitely had an issue with that, and Dana White had an issue with that. Dana White was definitely not going to pretend like, oh, I'm going to pay you what Deontay Wilder will make, like 50, 60, 70 million dollars in a boxing fight. He was nowhere near going to pay that much. Let's face facts. He was never going to do that. So there was that going on as well. So it wasn't just Francis Ngannou holding it up. Jon Jones had a part in that too. Then, of course, we remember how when Francis Ngannou, let's face facts, Francis Ngannou did not become the champion until 2021. So how were they even trying to make this fight for the past 3 years? That even makes me wonder. Jon Jones had left back in 2020 of February after he fought Dominic Reyes, and then we didn't really start hearing him until the year after, I want to say. He was kind of going back. He talked a lot about going up to heavyweight and this is that. Maybe there was some other stuff that wasn't being talked about. Okay, sure. But the stuff that were being talked about, again, the Deontay Wilder money. Then, of course, Francis Ngannou becoming champion, beating Stipe Miocic back in I want to say March of 2021. There was a whole lot going on regarding him and his next title defense. They wanted him to do a quick title defense, but of course he wasn't going around. That's when Jon Jones was not even around. He was not even being talked about as far as I remember, and he was not even going into the division. As far as I know, he was still like packing on the muscle, packing on the weight and such like that. So that's when they had Ciryl Gane going against Derek Lewis for the interim belt. And of course, Ciryl Gane ended up winning. Then Francis Ngannou comes back and fights Ciryl Gane in March of 2022. And then that's when there was also a lot of talks and a lot of negotiations with Francis Ngannou. I do remember that, how they both wanted to make this fight happen. I do remember they both really wanted to. They both wanted to get paid, but they were just not having it. They were not trying to pay Francis at that time. They weren't trying to get Francis at that money. Right now, Dana White had pretty much said that Francis Ngannou does not want to negotiate. I can understand why, because Francis Ngannou is asking for a few things that just the UFC isn't really going to give. He's not just asking for money. I don't even think he's asking for a big payday. I think he's asking for other stuff like sponsorships and, insurance and stuff like that it's not really going to happen. Not that quickly. Maybe it will happen down the line, but right now it's not going to happen. It's going to take multiple fighters and multiple people to actually help make this fight happen. Make this, the insurance and the sponsors happen again. Maybe down the line, but we don't know. But still, that's just something that he wasn't asking prior to all this. He was asking to get paid. He wanted to get paid. He wanted to make more money. And that was going to be a big fight. I remember going back and forth with people and friends and whatnot. And I also remember seeing the MMA world going back and forth with Dana White and talking like, hey, you know what? This is a huge fight. This is going to be a massive fight. With Jon Jones and the return to heavyweight, Jon Jones coming back and fighting for the heavyweight championship against one of the most scariest men men alive, Francis Ngannou, who was not going to pay to see that? How are you not going to make money to see that? And that's when we saw like, hey man, you know what? You need to pay these guys what they're worth, because, you know, if this was like a boxing fight, these guys will be making 10, 15, 20, maybe even $30 million, but they're probably going to get paid chump change at that time. But now, because of the want and the need to see this fight, basically got more bigger as time went on, then yeah, it became more like, hey, you know what? We really got to see this fight. And it became more interested to see this fight. And that's why Jon Jones is probably going to get paid even more than he was back then than he is now. He's going to get paid much more now than he was back then, I should say. So when it comes to like, oh, well, this fight did not happen because Francis Ngannou did not want it. No, Francis Ngannou wanted it multiple times. Multiple times. It was because of other people as well that made it where this fight could not happen. It was because of the greed. It was because of the fact that people didn't want to pay these fighters what they're worth. It was because at the end of the day, the timing wasn't right. You know, because Francis Ngannou was not even the champion at that time. So you can't say that it was because of 3 years that you know, it was Francis. They were trying for 3 years to get this fight going, but Francis really didn't want to do it, and there's no negotiating with him. There actually is negotiating with him. There is actually multiple times they could actually come to terms, but it just, at the end of the day, it was pride and ego that got in the way of this. That's what I feel. Maybe on both sides, because, you know, at the end of the day, Francis Ngannou probably could make a lot of money in the UFC. He probably could, 100%, outside of the boxing fights. And if he gets those boxing fights, he would definitely make way more money. But still, at the end of the day, everybody can make more money. Everybody can. That's what's very disappointing here. That's what's very sad. Like, how much money do you actually need? And why not relinquish a little power? Like, fine, you want this? Go ahead, take it here. I'm going to get paid either way. And that's what I say about the UFC and the organization there. Like, hey, your guys going to get paid either way. Who cares? It's like because you don't want to relinquish some kind of power, or it's because you just don't want to show like, hey, you know what? The fighters do earn a little bit more. It's like, no, I mean, come on. We could have had this fight multiple times. This fight probably could have happened. There was no word of even Jon Jones returning at all. And I know they were postponing it probably because of the fact that they were waiting for Francis Ngannou and see where he's at. But Francis Ngannou's been out for a while, and then they were kept postponing Johns, and there was just no word. At first, I thought they were going to move on, because remember, Francis Ngannou's been gone for a while. And I know there were talks and there were negotiations, and then finally, after a while, those negotiations fell apart with Francis, because I know that's what they were hanging on to, and there was just a lot of ups and downs. It was unfortunate. It was very unfortunate. I really wish they did come to terms. I would have loved to see Francis in the UFC. I wish that Francis Ngannou was allowed to box and stay in the UFC, because that was also another big one. We remember that. You know, at the end of the day, they pretty much dug their own hole when they allowed Conor McGregor to do that. And you ain't going to tell me that Conor McGregor did not make the UFC a boatload of money. That's the problem. The organization is going to make so much money if you allow some of these fighters to go out there and box. Yes, are they going to probably lose? Probably, but it's a different sport. You know, at the end of the day, it still did not do anything to Conor McGregor's reputation. He is still the highest paid athlete. He is still the biggest UFC star. He is still all these things. Floyd Mayweather did not do a damn thing to demolish his reputation at all. At all. So that's what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, why not let Francis Ngannou box and keep him under contract? Why not? What's going to happen? What's the worst case scenario? He gets knocked out by the heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury, or Anthony Joshua, or Deontay Wilder. So, like, any one of those 3 guys could knock out any heavyweight in that organization. It don't matter. Even including Jon Jones. Including him. That doesn't say anything. You just went into sport. You tried. Who knows? Maybe he actually beats these guys. Maybe Francis Ngannou actually beats these opponents, the boxers over there. And what then? Oh my God, you have yourself one hell of a superstar. Because it is possible. It is possible. Francis Ngannou, we all know, has the death punch. He will put a man's lights out with a simple jab. Guy has power. He does. He really, really does. So that's what I'm saying. That's where all this goes. And my big question to you guys is, do you think this fight ever does happen? I feel like it does. I feel like there's just too much money, too much on the table to let this fight not happen, for this fight to not happen. Maybe when they do the whole Africa, I know Dana White has been talking about Africa a lot, going over there and doing some kind of big event over there, like he has with Mexico and possibly Canada. Maybe that happens then when Francis Ngannou does come back. Maybe after Francis Ngannou does a couple of these fights, possibly with the Deontay Wilder, because I know there's been a lot of talks regarding that, and possibly with the Anthony Joshua or even a Tyson Fury, because we all know that was the big one. Then maybe, yeah, we can get this return. Because I'm never going to cancel that out for sure. Dana White said that. Oh, he 100% feels like it's not going to happen. Come on, let's face facts. Dana White has multiple times had disagreed on something, had said something that's never going to happen, and time again, he backfires on his word. It's like, oh, well, never mind. So yeah, no, I strongly feel this fight is going to happen. But guys, let me know in the comments on what you think about the Francis Ngannou Jon Jones fight. Let me know what you think about Dana White's comments on he's saying that it's never going to happen. Let me know what you think about his comments on saying that he tried to make this fight for 3 years and it did not happen. Let me know in the comments, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.